it's going to be probably the biggest year of growth and change for the Cardano ecosystem.
2024 may indeed be one of the biggest years for Cardano today. Not only do I believe that we have now entered a bull market, and I think altcoins are going to start to do very well in relation to Bitcoin as we start to see Bitcoin dominance look like it's going to roll over, but we have now entered the era of Voltaire. In this video, we're going to be explaining the significance of this year and what's about to happen and what this means for you guys as Cardano holders. The first thing for me to do, of course, is to look at the Cardano roadmap and the era that we are now in. So let's go over and take a look at that. So you can see there are 5 phases to the Cardano roadmap. The first one is Byron, the foundation, then Shelley decentralization, Goguen, the implementation of smart contracts that took place in 2021, and we have been currently going through the era of scaling Basho and are still currently in it. The phase that we are now moving into is Voltaire, and let's take a look at what the era of Voltaire entails before we dive over to some clips of Charles Hoskinson. Voltaire is all about governance. So the Voltaire era of Cardano will provide the final pieces required for the Cardano network to become a self-sustaining system. With the introduction of voting and a treasury system, network participants will be able to use their stake and voting rights to influence the future development of the network. For the Cardano network to become truly decentralized, it will require not only the distributed infrastructure introduced during the Shelley era, but also the capacity to be maintained and improved over time in a decentralized way. To that end, the Voltaire era will add the ability for network participation to present Cardano improvement proposals that can be voted on by stakeholders, leveraging the already existing staking and delegation process. To fund the future development of the network, Voltaire will also see the addition of a treasury system whereby a fraction of all transaction fees will be pooled to provide funds for development activities undertaken following the voting process. When both a voting and treasury system are in place, Cardano will be truly decentralized and no longer under IOHK's management. Instead, Cardano's future will be in the hands of the community, who will have everything they need to grow and evolve Cardano from the secure, decentralized basis established by IOHK. So this is really exciting, and a massive part of blockchain is governance. It's often very overlooked, but we've always liked Cardano because of the underlying principles that it stands upon, i.e. decentralization, and to build a self-governing constitution that benefits you guys, a system built by the people for the people. This is a very different approach to many other blockchains out there, and actually it is my belief, and I've said this many times, and it's one reason that I like Cardano so much, that Cardano is the evolution of Bitcoin. Let's now dive over to the clip, the very short clip that we played of Charles Hoskinson talking about 2024 and why it's going to be such a big year in a longer length format.
2024, hard to believe already 20 days in the year have passed. It's been a very unique and interesting year, fun year, and it's going to be probably the biggest year of growth and change for the Cardano ecosystem. And I wanted to make this video because I was just looking through the Electric Capital Developer Report, and it's a great example of how we can start organizing and orienting our thinking as a community and an ecosystem in general as we make priorities moving towards the end of the year. So as many of you know, there's a transition occurring where we're entering the age of Voltaire. And there are 3 pillars with that age of Voltaire. There's this first idea of democratic consent, where you have a list of stuff you can change inside the system or do inside the system. And there needs to be some on-chain governance system that enables and allows you to make those changes. So we have concepts like the DREPs, the Constitutional Committee, we have the SPOs. So it's a tripartite government that's being proposed, and we're gradually building in that direction together. The second thing are the notion of institutions. And institutions are organizations like the Cardano Foundation or Intersect or others. You could count IO as an institution, which are around. They have a role and a place, usually and hopefully by the end of the year, fully enabled and validated through a democratic consent, so some delegated authority. And the point of an institution is to help eschew complexity. In other words, world's a very complicated place. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to think about. There needs to be a mixing pot where we take all that complexity and turn it into simplicity and create a very clear understanding of things like a budget, a roadmap, strategic priorities, and where we want to go, how we want to get there.
So this year we are going to see the massive undertaking of the implementation of Voltaire and all the things that come with it. This is nothing short of exciting and really a completing piece of the Cardano puzzle. This is of the utmost importance, having a decentralized governance system, a decentralized government on chain, certainly in the kind of techno-feudalistic world that we are currently living in, and it's going to only amplify over time as the world becomes more and more engulfed in technology. And if you look at the kind of technology that the world currently uses, it is essentially owned by a handful of people. Let's now move on to Charles Hoskinson talking about this in a little bit more detail, and then we've got a final clip to close the video out on.
There's no way to escape that. So when we talk about the budget of Cardano, every one of you listening, you kind of have some first, second, third order, some surface level concerns and some deep philosophical concerns about where you want this protocol to go. The concept, that first pillar of representation and consent for a governing structure, means that you endow those concerns either yourself by being a DREP or to a third party that you trust into that party, and you endow them with your will. And then they talk around what should the vision, the roadmap, and the budget of Cardano be relative to the resources of Cardano. So if we care, for example, about marketing and adoption, and we have some notion, let's say, of ecosystem growth, do we care at the $5 million a year level, the $10 million a year level, the $20 million a year? And what are the differences in terms of projections of what that actually buys you? Where is the diminishing return? It's very easy to overspend. It's very easy to underspend. So what's the balance of these types of things? So if you're interested in this conversation, this is an example of a conversation that will be occurring at Intersect, and Intersect is going to make a recommended budget and submit it to the government of Cardano for the government of Cardano to debate and ultimately make a decision about. Now, they have no special authority in that only their budget can be considered. Any budget actually can be considered. And this is actually the power and magic of an open blockchain system. As an American citizen, I don't get the right to propose to the House of Representatives a budget for the federal government. I wish I did, because I'd start at zero.
This is absolutely huge. In 2024, you guys will hopefully by the end of it have implemented the abilities to vote on how funds are spent and what things need paying attention to. This is huge, and actually we have seen many other governance systems across many other blockchains. I think Cardano is perhaps going to have one of the best governance systems that there is. And again, we like Cardano because it champions this idea of a protocol built by the people, for the people, and ultimately for their benefit, that gives them their sovereignty back in the same way that Bitcoin gave sovereignty over money back to the individuals and out of the hands of the corrupt central bankers. Cardano is really trying to extend on that underlying thesis. Let's now dive into the final clip, and then I'm going to love and leave you.
In other words, you take the best of Ethereum and the best of Bitcoin, you put them together, and you've created Cardano. It's a pretty magical thing when you think about it. And it's something that is seldom discussed when you read these VC reports. And it's seldom discussed by YouTubers because they just haven't really been in this space long enough to understand really the bedrock of where value actually comes from. It is impossible to replicate a well-formed government populated by well-intended, well-educated, hardworking people. You earn it. You can't copy paste it. And generally speaking, once it's established and it's running, it's non-migratory. It's not the case that somebody will say, you know, I've invested all this time in Cardano, but I'm just going to go over to Avalanche now, or Polygon, or Solana. No, they're pretty much an adherent of that ecosystem. And when they see problems, they don't leave from those problems. They feel an obligation to fix them. And because they have that mindset, it's just a multiplying game of adding more and more over time. So it's always been my belief that those who embrace on-chain government, strong institutions, and constitutional representation will win in the long run in terms of decentralization and network utility and value. But you have to earn it. And this is the year we as an ecosystem are earning it.
So I do think Cardano's approach to success is very much one that heavily relies on you guys, the participants in the network, that the network has been built to protect. This idea of a constitution that you guys get to decide on is of the utmost importance, again, in this kind of world that we're moving towards, where they are constantly changing the goalposts in the traditional kind of world in regards to what's acceptable and what's not, what rights you have and what you don't. Whereas Cardano is really looking to combat this via the use of distributed ledger technology. And that's what this industry is all about. We always say Bitcoin maximalists are exceptionally confused, perhaps arrogant or ignorant, because they've took an underlying technology and said it only has one use case. Actually, the use cases for distributed ledger technologies are far and wide, and Cardano is trying to pioneer its own use case and giving you guys the right to choose. And what is freedom? Freedom is the right to choose and make decisions. On that note, guys, I'm going to love and leave you. I think 2024 is going to be an exceptionally exciting year. We've got lots of things taking place for Cardano in regards to partner chains and a number of other things. As we always do so many videos, sort of bigging up Cardano and saying that we think actually there's a lot that's special about it, we are going to be doing a walk and talk video later on this week where we are going to be looking at some issues that I have with Cardano and being open and honest about them. So do stay tuned for that. I think it's going to hopefully open a good debate on Cardano and the future of it. And on that note, I'm going to love and leave you. If you've enjoyed this content, a like is always appreciated, so is a comment. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next.